Matt Hanis. Did I say that right, Matt?
You did.
Hanis? Is it Hanis? Hanis?
Uh-huh.
And Matt is very interesting. He does a show kind of like Doc Talk Live, a little bit differently, but his show is on the business of healthcare, and he's also very much into connecting patients and physicians through what's called MedChat. With that said, tell us a little bit about your show, The Business of Healthcare.
Sure, and thank you for having me on your show. It seems like it's the 1960s where we're cross-pollinating shows on the network, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the business of healthcare is sort of the parallel to your show, where you have such a large consumer audience. My audience are the senior leaders across healthcare, and the story that we bring to them are the innovations that help elevate mission and margin.
That's interesting. So what type of people do you have on the Business of Healthcare show? Who do you interview, or how do you do it?
Yeah, and I don't know if you could share the extra screen there, and I'll show an illustration.
Okay, let's see if it comes on. I hit. There we go. Is it there for you too?
Yep.
Super. Okay.
Yep. So what you're seeing here is the BOH website, and anybody can go check it out. The URL is bohseries.com. It's free to access. And if you scroll down, you'll see some various examples of folks that I've had on the show. And two examples that I'll give that are super relevant. One is if you're familiar with the opioid epidemic, we had on the show one of the women, physician leader from a family medicine practice, and she talks about how she transformed her practice in rural North Carolina to be able to deliver care for opioid use disorder patients and do it in such a way that it was profitable. Today, unfortunately, for most physicians, providing opioid use treatment is not a very profitable business. And so she solved the problem of doing the mission of serving that population and doing it in a way that made financial sense.
I see. And how often do you do your show?
So we try to publish at least once a month. We've done it as frequently as weekly. And this is full production. We go on site to conferences and trade shows and film episodes there live in front of an audience. It's a big production undertaking, and it has come to a screeching halt because of our friend, the coronavirus.
I see. Well, my show is less about production and more, I don't know, how do I say it? It's more about everyday life and how we interact and trying to get people involved in a friendly fashion where people can write in questions and almost sort of control the content. Ideally, I would love for the people that find me or find Doc Talk Live to be able to suggest guests and actually direct the show, if you will, and me just sort of be a moderator who also is trying to learn at the same time. So interesting parallels there. I think at the end of the show, I might pick your brain a little bit about social media and running a show. Tell us a little bit about MedChat. That's another thing you're involved in, right?
Yeah, and so I had one of the things that's fun in what I do is I get the opportunity to see a lot of innovations, a lot of companies that have brought to market ideas that can help transfer healthcare. And I want to pause on that because there's something you said that I thought was really interesting. You want, in the perfect world, you want your consumer, your customer, your audience member to direct the show. And I think in the United States, one of the challenges we have in our delivery system is that the consumer doesn't necessarily have the ability to direct the show. And that's a conundrum because in most other facets of our lives as a consumer, we can make a lot of the decisions. But in healthcare, That isn't the case. And part of that is because the human body is so incredibly complicated. But part of it is because the economic incentives in our delivery system do not necessarily put the power in the hands of the consumer. And that's no individual's fault. That's not the fault of physicians or health systems or payers. We've created a system as a country that generally doesn't align the consumer and the provider with the right economic incentives. And I think that is in the midst of changing. And I think that thing is changing actually quite quickly. And I think consumers are suddenly getting a lot more power in their hands. And a really concrete example of that is how telehealth has taken off in the past few weeks with the coronavirus. The coronavirus has forced people to not be able to go to the doctor for common day-to-day needs, chronic conditions, injuries, and so forth. So I think this example of how telehealth has taken off is providers adapting to give consumers what they want. And telehealth is just one concrete example of that. One of the other problems in this consumer experience is how hard it is to communicate between healthcare organizations and their patients. And if you pop up on the screen this additional feed, I'll show you an example of this. This is a website for a mid-sized health system in Pennsylvania called WellSpan. And WellSpan, like pretty much every other website in the country, launched a coronavirus page. And the problem with a coronavirus page is that's a lot of information. And if, as a consumer, trying to get through all this information is, well, tricky, right?
Right.
So MedChat solves that problem with chatbots and live chat. So you can see over on the right, I just caused one of the MedChat chatbots to launch. And essentially what this chatbot does, this particular one, is designed to triage patients based on their coronavirus symptoms. And there are other chatbots out there. Microsoft launched one on the CDC website, which is a beautiful piece of work. The thing that MedChat does, which I think is really interesting, is not only can this triage bot assess your symptoms, but then it can also take you to a destination. A great use case is if you happen to be a critical.
I'm going to see if I can hide.
All right. Now I'm dominating. Sure. That's it. Can you still hear me okay though?
Sorry about that. It changed your voice when I did that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah, not at all. So the way that these chatbots can work in a perfect world, and I think MedChat's getting close to it, is not only can this triage bot assess your symptoms, but it can also make a recommendation and say, hey, based on your symptoms, you should probably self-isolate. Here's some self-isolation instructions. You're fine. Or maybe you're a healthcare worker and you're some other essential worker and you need a COVID-19 test and a physician order for that test in order to be able to go back to work, let's say. And so what this chatbot can do is help route you to a telehealth session to get that order and then get you in the queue for a physician for a COVID-19 test.
So what I'm hearing and what I really like about what I think you're trying to do, Matt, is I find one of the problems in medicine is there seems to be a lot of barriers to get the patient to the doctor. So if, for instance, if one of my patients has a problem, they have to go through my answering service, who then contacts me via a HIPAA secured site, and then I get that message and I call the patient. And that's not really the way I learned medicine. And when I came out of practice, when I started my practice in the early 90s, the best way for my patients to reach me when they needed me was to call 411, because my number was in the phone book, right?
Right. Yeah.
But now now at 411 doesn't even work. I don't have quote unquote a published number, but I'm not really hiding. And so I think what you're trying to do is via the internet create access for patients to get to their doctors in a HIPAA safe way. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And I'm going to show you another example of a physician practice that's deployed this. This practice is actually really interesting. It's Medical Offices of Manhattan. They're the largest independent primary care practice in Manhattan. So they are truly in the thick of it right now. And prior to coronavirus hitting, what they had done is they had built out, using one of these chatbots, the ability to do things like basically get through most of the steps of scheduling an appointment or asking billing questions or requesting medical records. So a lot of the routine activities that a physician practice has to deal with, and normally these would be a phone call, right? And the consumer would call and somebody would answer the phone if there was somebody available. And, it might take 10 minutes to get through the medical records workflow. With one of these chatbots and live chat, it actually, to request medical records, requires no action on the part of the practice. The consumer can do it 24 hours a day. It's all HIPAA secure. You're getting all the information that the patient has to provide in order to request medical records. For appointment scheduling, you can do it in a simple way where you're simply saying, hey, I want to get an appointment. And when you start chatting, there's somebody on the other side that's scheduling the appointment. Or you can do it in a very sophisticated way and automate that appointment scheduling process. So for, the mom with 3 kids who works during the day back in the old days when we worked in offices, and she didn't want to get on the phone and call because she doesn't want everybody to hear her healthcare needs. A chatbot like this works great for her because she can do it while she's at the office or do it at night when nobody's available. So I think,
So has your business exploded in the last 3 weeks?
So it has been so fascinating. It has exploded, but we made the decision as much as possible to give our COVID-19 chatbots away, particularly to small independent physician practices, organizations. That most physician practices, and I don't know about your practice, but if you're not right on the leading edge of COVID-19, if you're, sleep medicine, or pretty much every physician practice that I'm talking to, their volumes are down 80 or 90%.
Yes, that is my experience too.
Yeah. And everybody's hurting. And so we said, look, we've got something here that will benefit the consumer, will benefit the provider. Now's not the right time to charge for it. And so for us, we're excited because it's an opportunity for people to get the experience of using these tools. And we hope on the back end of it that we'll see more adoption. But MedChat just, it already has hundreds of clients and is a successful company in its own right.
So Doc Talk Live, in a way, is kind of like a MedChat, but it's not meant to be HIPAA compliant. It's really meant to be where people can share their situation. And if I have an expert on, that expert can comment and perhaps offer some insight, which would then be shared with thousands of other people who have interest or a similar condition. So in a way, What you're doing on the business side in a HIPAA compliant way is paralleling what I would like to do with Doc Talk Live in a in a in a way such as that's more of an educational tool than anything else.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is really interesting. I love also, your journey. I mean, you not too long ago we're doing this broadcasting over radio, right? That was
Well, years ago, I had a radio show, a call-in radio show, and what I liked about that is people could call in, live with questions. Whereas via Facebook, it's still I would like people to be able to get their image in, like tune in. I like today to get you on, I had to email you a link, which you then, plugged into your computer. I would like people to basically chatbot into our show, Matt.
Mhm. Yep.
Can you make that happen?
Well, we're so Business of Healthcare is behind you in terms of our technology innovation. We will be launching our first live cast next week, and so we went 3 months where we couldn't go on site and do any production. We had to cancel a bunch of events and reach the conclusion that we'd invest the energy and go live as a broadcast. And so the approach we're going to take is doing a live broadcast with up to 2 guests, and then have the chat visible. And this will all happen on the BOH website, so you won't necessarily have to log into Facebook. Although Facebook makes a lot more sense for what you do because your audience is much more of a consumer audience.
I see. So other businesses, professionals would go to your website because you would tell them when to tune in.
Right.
And then like a Zoom conference, they could potentially call in questions.
That's right. That's right.
All right. I'm going to hide that. I'm learning so much just talking to you.
Well, it's a two-way street.
Matt, let me just tell people how they find MedChat. It's MedChat, MedChat, app.com. MedChatapp.com.
That's right.
And I appreciate you taking the time. Do you have any suggestions for Doc Talk Live in terms of how we could reach people, or and if you don't, that's fine too. But since you're here, I just pick your brain a little bit about how we could, improve.
Well, I have to say that you live in a world that I don't understand well. Well, first of all, I'm not a physician, so I have neither the training nor the expertise to
right. And you live in a world that I don't understand well either. That's
yeah. Good. But what I've learned over the past year, and we did a series in BOH that focused on patient and consumer engagement. And one of the things that I learned was that there is a huge set of communities in Facebook, on Google. There's a company called a website called City Data, a bunch of different websites where consumers, and these consumers tend to be moms. They tend to be between the ages of 30 and 50, and they are the primary healthcare decision makers in our country. They're for themselves, for their children, their spouses, and their parents. That is the healthcare decision maker. And there are these micro communities that have developed. And so the one idea that I would offer to you is it might be interesting to engage those micro communities and do Doc Talk Live with each of them. Because there's, literally thousands of these communities, groups who are in, there's a Facebook group in Little Rock, Arkansas, that is entirely parents whose children have some form of pediatric cancer. And that's an incredibly, I mean, obviously anything happens to your child, that's incredibly emotional. Add in the complications of trying to handle that in a complex healthcare delivery system. You need a support group. And so these groups are fascinating, fascinating because they are the place where healthcare decision making is occurring today.
Interesting. We have a comment from somebody who says, thank you for having MedChat on today. Very informative.
Hmm.
If there are other questions, what tends to happen is people will type in questions when they catch the rebroadcast. And should that happen, I might lean on you to try to answer some of them. Also, I hope that we're in touch really about our own MedChat capabilities in my office. So
would love to have a chance to get you guys set up and work with you. One thing I'm curious about, in given your specialty, I'm really curious about your perspective. There's going to be a new normal, right? We're going to get through this coronavirus. This will get resolved. We will get to the other side of it. What do you think is going to change dramatically in healthcare as a result of this experience?
Well, first of all, that's a great segue into the fact that I'm going to have the mayor of Birmingham on later today.
Great.
40 minutes. So I'm going to probably be asking him a similar question in terms of how our city will be prepared the next time around, and whether he would have changed anything in regards to the response to this coronavirus. But your question is a leading one, which is to say that I think it has pushed the community into going virtual with healthcare. I personally think that going to the doctor is a frustrating experience, and a lot of it can be handled through telehealth. And I think that it has opened up the eyes of patients that, hey, we can do telehealth, and B, it's going to push the insurance providers to be more flexible in terms of allowing telehealth.
Mm-hmm.
Why should you, as a sick person, sit in a waiting room with other sick people, infecting people, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I do think that this has pushed us to rethink the way we deliver healthcare.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I feel like, I think there were two barriers to telehealth up to this moment. One barrier was consumer adoption. I think there's just a lot of consumers who, it's new. I saw a statistic 2 years ago for most of the health plans that offered telehealth as a service through the plan, they would get maybe 2 to 3% adoption. Well, that's now inched up to 8 or 9%. And I think with the addition of some of the new innovations like 98.6, which is, if you haven't run across that, it's a great product. The idea is it's an entirely chat-based primary care offering. You download an app on your phone, and essentially you're using the communication over that app to do everything. I had a sinus infection a couple of days ago, and it cost me literally $1 to answer some questions, interact with a physician, verify my history, and they prescribed the antibiotic. So you don't even need two-way video. My point is that part of the barrier was just the consumer getting comfortable with it, and the physician, of course. But the other big barrier was what you touched on, which is reimbursement. Where everybody needs to earn a fair compensation for the work they do. Physicians are no different. Physicians spend an incredible amount of money and time in their education, in trade, and they need to be well compensated. And historically, there have been a lot of barriers to reimbursing telehealth. I had the opportunity to interview one of the leaders at MedPAC. MedPAC is the organization that sets the pricing and policies in the Medicare reimbursement program. So how you get paid when a Medicare patient comes to you. And their point was they were consciously not allowing most services to occur over telehealth because they were terrified about the amount of volume that would come, because that would open up the door. You'd take away the barriers and more people would be able to access care. And so I think that barrier will return, because I think it's true. I think if you make telehealth highly accessible to consumers through their health plan, that there will be more utilization. But I think there's a win out of that. And I think the win is, in this country, we will be far better served in a delivery system where we as consumers pay for value than if we as consumers pay for service. I don't care how many times I go to the doctor to solve my sinus infection. I want my sinus infection fixed. I want to pay you the same amount of money to help me fix my sinus infection. And if that takes you 3 visits and that takes this other physician 1 visit, I don't care. I want to pay my money. I want to solve my problem as a consumer. I want value for the money that I spend.
But I hate to disagree with you in the sense that I feel like what the virtual system of health offers is service. It's very consumer friendly.
Totally.
A patient in northern Alabama who's 3 hours away doesn't have to drive 6 hours, 3 hours here and 3 hours back, when they can accomplish everything via the internet.
Totally agree with you. I'm coming out in a slightly different vein. As a payer, what I'm worried about is if I open up care so that any care that you provide, other than that which requires hands-on, any care that you provide can be done over telehealth. If you do that, there will be more utilization. There will be more visits because you've taken the barrier of time, space, and inconvenience out. And I think that's a great thing. The problem with that is we're now going to spend even more money in healthcare, which is not what we want to be doing. And what I'm suggesting is I would like to embrace telehealth from a business perspective. And I, as a provider, if I were a health system or a physician practice, I would rather be paid for the value that I generated in outcomes than paid in the number of things that I did, the number of encounters that I have.
So I'm going to continue this conversation for a few more minutes, just to plant a seed with you for when we talk again. So
Great.
We can talk about value, because that's really a good buzzword for what I do, which is to say that I'm an orthopedist. I'm a non-surgical orthopedist. And the main thing that I treat is back pain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to ask you some interesting questions. If you have a heart attack, who do you see?
I go to the ED. So an emergency.
Well, who would you see, though? Who would be the specialist that would look at your heart?
Cardiologist or cardiovascular surgeon.
Exactly. If you had an ulcer in your stomach, who would you see?
I guess a GI doc.
A gastroenterologist, right. If you had a problem with your urination, who would you see? Or a prostate problem?
Urologist.
If you had a stroke, who would you see?
Neurologist.
Right. If you had a back attack, who would you see?
You.
Of course. But if you didn't know me, who would you see?
Right. Yeah. It could be my primary care doc. It could
primary care, your emergency room doctor, a family practice doctor, an orthopedic surgeon, a neurosurgeon, a chiropractor, a physical therapist. So the list goes on and on and on. So I'm in a specialty where value can easily be measured because there's so many different people providing care for it. That's all different. The surgeon is providing surgery for it. The chiropractor is providing manipulation for it. The internist or family practice doctor is providing pills for it. Where's the value?
Yeah.
So anyway, I've planted that seed. That'll give us something fun to talk about next time we tackle healthcare, because I think there's an area where you can really look at how do we figure out where the value is if so many different providers are treating the same patient.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting subject matter.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you go, Matt. Thanks again for doing this, and I appreciate whoever happens to see it. And also, please write in with suggestions. Excuse me. We try to get doctors on and guests on that people want to see. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thanks for including me. I appreciate it, and thanks for the work that you're doing.
Appreciate it.